Welcome to the Chill Cook. This is another basics episode, and today we're talking about something that lots of people ask me about. This is pasta dough. And I'm super pumped. This is going to be a really easy pasta recipe that I think you're going to be glad to have in your arsenal. So I am using just my countertop. I even moved my wooden cutting board out of the way. Usually people like to do dough on there, but I feel like it's way easier. One thing to clean, no bowl necessary. Just of course, goes without saying, please make sure that you have a sanitary counter before you put your food on there. So I have 1 cup of regular all-purpose flour, and then I am adding 1 cup of semolina flour. This is like a very traditional Italian ingredient for pasta dough. If you can't get your hands on this, you could just use all AP flour for this. Ingredients that you add to this: dry. 1.5 teaspoons of salt. Your pasta should definitely be flavorful. Salt helps make that happen, of course. And there's about 1.5 teaspoons. These are all the dry ingredients. Just get in there with clean hands. Combine them a little bit. And if you've watched my other episodes, you know how much I love a bench scraper. It really keeps things kind of clean, gets up underneath your ingredients there. And what you want is kind of mounded up like a little volcano. Then just use like 4 fingers, get in there in a circular motion, and make a well. The intention here, actually the flour acts as our bowl. We don't even need a bowl to dirty. Into this we're going to add 3 eggs and also 1 tablespoon of olive oil. And then that's it. That's all of our ingredients. Grab a fork, carefully break up those eggs, and start to whisk them together. Oh, and this is a good moment to add anything additional that you want flavor-wise, especially if it's a liquid. I would say you can also add dry ingredients anywhere throughout this dough process. And I'm actually going to add some porcini mushroom powder. This is really good umami flavor that I think adds a lot to this pasta, and I'm going to be using this probably later on for something with mushrooms because that's one of my favorite combos for pasta. If you get a little spillover, that's okay. Just kind of fill the dam in with your flour. So once that's mixed up, what you're going to start to do, still using your fork, is just pull in some of that flour and combine it into the liquid. So just go ahead, slowly take your time, trying not to burst your dam here. Add flour a little bit at a time until it's all incorporated. And once it thickens up enough that it's not quite a liquid anymore, you can let that volcano fall apart and just kind of go crazy mixing stuff in. And once it gets really solid, you're going to switch over to favorite tools here in the kitchen, just your hands, to mix this the rest of the way. And just combine. You want to just keep working this until you get all that dry flour mixed in. One of the things that I like about this pasta recipe, you can kind of add if you need to. I say if it seems like it's way too dry, add a little bit more olive oil. And if it's too wet, you can always add a little bit more of either type of those flours that you have in here. But don't assume too quickly. Work it for a while, even if you think it seems a little dry or a little wet, just to see what happens. Oftentimes, it'll end up combining when you think maybe it looks a little dry, and it'll end up being perfect. And I talk a little bit about kneading in my tortilla recipe. It's really just about getting that base of your palm in there and adding some pressure, then kind of folding over and just doing that same thing over and over again. And you know you're going to be done here whenever you get something that looks a little bit smooth on the outside, and it's giving you a lot of kind of elastic pushback whenever you try and knead it. This takes maybe 5 to 10 minutes of kneading maximum here. See, pretty smooth on top, nice surface. You're done kneading. Now all I'm going to do, drape this with a little dishcloth for about 20 to 30 minutes and let it rest. All that elasticity is going to kind of mellow out, and it's going to be easier to roll and turn into delicious pasta. Going to clean up a little bit. See you in a bit. Okay, it's been about a half hour letting this dough rest, just in a clean towel here. I'm set up to roll this out and then also thin it out through my pasta machine and turn it into real pasta. So I cut this into fourths here just to get more manageable hunks of dough. It's a lot easier to work with a smaller piece. And because it's got the olive oil in it, it's pretty non-stick. You can just roll it out a little bit right here on your clean countertop. And if you don't have a pasta machine, you can do this entirely with your rolling pin and just a knife, and then cut it into pieces. For me, I'm just going to get it thin enough to easily feed through here and get this into some real pasta. What you're going to do is set this on the widest setting. Start out wide and work your way to something a little smaller. And this first pass is always kind of the hardest one, so just patiently feed it in there. Keep turning your knob. That's going to start to come out the bottom for you. There you go. And then I sometimes double it over and feed it through again, because it helps cut down on those sort of unshapely edges. You're just going to work your way towards that thinner setting. If you find that you have a lot of cracking going on, then your dough might just be a little dry. And I'll just get my hand just a touch damp. I'll kind of give it some moisture. Not wet, but just a little bit of moisture added in there. When you're adding the semolina to this situation, it's just a little bit maybe drier of a flour. So that's why you might need to add a little bit of water to help this get thinned out. And I took this to the second to last thinness. Not all the way, just because it's a little bit more rustic, it's a little thicker that way. Looks pretty good. Some little scraggly edges, but that's okay. All that's left now is to actually cut it into the slices. For this example, I'm going to do sort of a fettuccine size. Look at that. Perfect. You can use this right away, or spread it out on a clean towel and give it just a few minutes to dry. And if you're going to do it that way, once you have it dry that it won't stick together too much, you can store it in the fridge for a few days before you use it. Or you can put it in the freezer in a zip-top bag and it'll keep for quite a while. Fresh pasta at your fingertips. And behind me I've got a pot of salted boiling water. And cooking fresh pasta, you need to keep in mind that it's only going to take a couple minutes. For me, I really just look for it to float. So I'm going to kind of gingerly drop this down in, and then I'm going to stir it with like a slotted spoon or something right away, because once you get it moving in there, it's not going to stick together as much. After just a couple minutes, I see that it's floating to the surface here. Just to make sure it's perfect, I'm going to grab a piece out of here. Let's see what we've got. So good. You get a little bit of that al dente chew thanks to using semolina. I'm going to reserve just a little bit of my pasta water. It's nice and starchy. And then drain these off. Make a real quick little snack for myself just so you guys can see a great way to make this work. Okay. Those are drained off. Put a towel down. And just a couple simple ingredients. This is going to be an awesome snack. I'm going to start with a drizzle of olive oil. Put in a healthy pat of butter, and I am going to use a European cultured butter just because that's got great flavor. Some fresh cracked pepper. A lot of that because that's delicious. And last but not least, some fresh grated parm in there. You can be generous. And the heat from those noodles is going to melt that butter and that Parmesan. Oh man, it smells good. That melting cheese smell. And if you need to kind of make it into a little bit of a sauce that just looks a touch dry to you, add some of that hot starchy water. And this is sort of like a cacio e pepe. Oh my gosh. Look at that. And for good measure, maybe just a little bit more fresh grated parm on there. Let's see how we did. The chew, the texture of that pasta is so perfect. You get some of that al dente, and it's sometimes hard to get with fresh pasta because of the addition of the semolina. The adding of salt to the dough and then salting the water too brings the flavor up. Tons of good flavor coming through. And then simple butter, parm, black pepper, and you have something seriously good. Honestly, you can serve this to people and they'd be impressed. And that, once you have the pasta done, this is like a 5-minute dish. Of course, this pasta recipe is great for all kinds of things. Ravioli, anything that you want to do with pasta. I recommend you give it a try. You'll realize it's easier than you think. It's fun, and anybody can do it. So please subscribe to our channel. Make sure you don't miss out on any of our videos. Check us out at thechillcook.com for the full recipe and lots of other great stuff. And follow us on social media at The Chill Cook. Thanks for joining me. This has been pretty fun. Talk to you guys soon.